Good day, beautiful people. Today we will take a look at your clinical chemistry. Please note that your clinical chemistry, it is divided into two courses. You have clinical chemistry 1 and clinical chemistry 1 and clinical chemistry 2. Okay, and yes, please note that your clinical chemistry 1, both of them, I mean your clinical chemistry 1 and 2, both of them, they have a laboratory component. Anyhow, as per the definition, your clinical chemistry is a branch of laboratory medicine which deals with analyzing chemical constituents of the blood and body fluids. So what are these chemical constituents that are being examined? You have the metabolites, enzymes, hormones, electrolytes, glucose or carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and many more accordingly. And please note that your clinical chemistry, this laboratory branch of laboratory medicine, supports diagnosis as well as monitoring and prognosis of diseases. Anyway, under clinical chemistry, you will learn about instrumentation, about glasswares, about biochemistry, as well as some sorts of analytical chemistry here. Anyhow, again, that is for your clinical chemistry. It is a branch of laboratory medicine which deals with the chemical constituents of blood and body fluids. So what are the analytes that you are testing here? You have glucose, you have proteins, or you have albumin, you have globulin, you have your lipids, you have cholesterol, triglyceride, total chole, HDL, you have your hormones, you have your enzymes like AST or alanine aminotransferase, ALT, amylase, as well as blood urea nitrogen. These are metabolites, uric acid, creatinine, and the rest of your chemical constituents. And please note that usually your sample in clinical chemistry is serum or plasma. And please note that your clinical chemistry, the section, of course, the laboratory, because of course your straight work again is the clinical laboratory. In clinical chemistry, you detect or you run tests to detect metabolic and systemic diseases, as well as a lot of diseases, of course. Anyhow, let's take a look at your what you call this pre-analytical phase here before we move on to your proteins, to your carbohydrates, and as such. In testing, this one will be presented also to you in clinical chemistry. In testing, you have what you call as phases of testing. You have your pre-analytical or pre-examination phase. You have examination or analytic phase, and then you have your post-examination or your post-analytic phase accordingly. Okay, so you have here for your what are the things or what are the parameters done or included in the pre-analytical phase. You have patient preparation, the fasting of the patient, that is part of the pre-analytic phase. The fasting, the sample collection, that is part of your analytic phase. Okay, so in patient preparation, fasting, the medications, what else? Specimen type and or select specimen type selection. Okay. Of course, this one you will base this one on the type of test that you will run. Okay. And so does the test require whole blood, like for hemoglobin A1C, or does the test require serum or plasma or whatever? Proper collection is also part of analytical phase. Aside from that, labeling and transport, they are part of your analytic phase. And then sample requirements, of course, avoiding hemolysis, avoiding lipemia, and icteric serum. These are what you call this part still of analytic phase. Okay, patient identification is also part of your pre-analytic phase. And then, yes, your time-sensitive analytes, like in case of ammonia, Okay, protection from light for your bilirubin and the rest. Please note that you have actually a lot of actions or a lot that will fall under the pre-analytic phase. And then you have your analytical phase. Your analytical phase, of course, this one is the testing proper. Testing proper. Okay, feeding the sample to this automated analyzer. Okay, yeah. Calibration and standardization or quality control. Okay, yeah. What do you call this? Maintaining or ensuring reagent quality and stability. And interferences like endogenous and exogenous interferences, as well as the selection. Okay, and so all of this falls under analytic phase. And then you have your post-analytic phase. Okay, it will include verification and validation of result, delta check and critical values. You mean your delta check, that is checking the previous results of the patient. What else? Interpretation based on reference intervals and reporting formats and turnaround time, communication with clinicians, and of course, okay, interpretation of results by the doctor or by the physician. Okay, and so yes, transferring the result into a result form, validation of the result, those items will fall under the post-analytical phase of testing. Anyhow, let's take a look at your specimens utilized in clinical chemistry. According to your references, your serum that is the most commonly utilized sample in the clinical chemistry section or in the clinical chemistry. And yes, your serum, this is the liquid portion of a clotted blood. This is the liquid portion of a clotted blood. And your plasma, it is the liquid portion of an anticoagulated blood. It is the liquid portion of an anticoagulated blood. Okay, and please note, of course, it contains anticoagulants somewhat, and it has a faster processing time comparing it with your serum because you need some time for the blood to clot, okay, or to coagulate. And then you have your whole blood. Please note that your serum and plasma, they are utilized in basic metabolic panels like glucose, lipid profile, and the rest of your metabolic panels. And then you have your whole blood. Your whole blood is utilized, of course, your whole blood. Okay, it is an anticoagulated blood, whole blood. It is not a clotted blood. Okay, your whole blood, it is for gases. Okay, and then yes, blood gases. Yes, yeah, it is also utilized for glucose in case of hemoglobin A1C. In case of hemoglobin A1C. And you have your urine for renal and metabolic assessment. If the doctor requested for uh, creatinine determination using the urine as a sample or whatsoever. And then you have your CSF, your pleural and peritoneal fluid. These samples can be utilized, okay, in the clinical chemistry section also. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Please note that the an anticoagulated blood, you call it as a whole blood. Okay, you call that as a whole blood. If you spin a blood or a whole blood, or if you spin a blood with an anticoagulant, you will yield a plasma and a hematocrit as well as a Bafficoto. So the plasma is the liquid portion of an anticoagulated blood or of a blood that is placed in a tube that has an anticoagulant. And after placing it, you did some inversions and then you spin, you will have a plasma as the liquid portion. And then of course you have here the hematocrit or the packed red cells. And then for serum, okay, that is the liquid portion of a blood that is clotted or that is coagulated. Okay, that is coagulated accordingly. Okay, that is coagulated accordingly. You have the serum, okay, and then this is the blood clot. There is a clotting that has taken place here. Whereas in whole blood and in plasma, the clotting process is inhibited. Okay, so let's take a look at your basic analytical techniques. Okay, because I've said, as what I've said earlier, in clinical chemistry, you will learn about instrumentation. Okay, you will learn about instrumentation, and you have the following. These are instrumentation techniques accordingly, or analytical techniques. You have spectrophotometry, flame photometry, ISE, electrophoresis, chromatography, immunoassay, nephelometry, potentiometry, and the rest of your basic analytical techniques. Okay, for spectrophotometry, it what do you call this? It measures absorbance of light by a colored solution in a specific wavelength. And yes, please note that this one is based on the Beer-Lambert law. Okay, it is based on the Beer-Lambert law, wherein the absorbance is directly proportional to the concentration. It is directly proportional to the concentration. And yes, this is commonly utilized in the clinical chemistry laboratory. This analytical technique is commonly utilized in the clinical chemistry laboratory. And yes, your spectrophotometry is used for determination of glucose, cholesterol, enzyme, bilirubin, and others. Okay, excuse me. And then you have your flame photometry. Your flame photometry, it is a technique, actually a special technique for measuring metals like potassium, sodium, and lithium as such. In flame photometry, there is a flame, of course. The sample is aspirated into a flame. Okay, the sample is aspirated into a flame, causing atoms to emit light at characteristic wavelength. Okay, the sample is aspirated into a flame. Parang sinunog mo siya somewhat, causing atoms to emit light at a characteristic wavelength. So, in flame photometry, accordingly, the emission intensity, or yes, the emitted light, the emitted light intensity is equal to the concentration of the ion that is in question. Okay, but then please note that you have your ISE, which somewhat your ion selective electrode, which somewhat replaced your flame photometry. Which somewhat replaced your flame photometry. Your ISE, or your ion selective electrode, it measures electrolytes based on the potential difference across a selective membrane. Okay, ion selective electrode, please note, it measures the electrolytes based on the potential difference across a selective membrane. And yes, same with flame photometry, it is utilized for sodium, potassium, calcium, and chloride, and others. Okay, and then you have your, by the way, for your ISE, it is actually rapid. Okay, mabilis lang po ito. I-feed mo lang siya, okay, feed mo lang yung sample into the machine will aspirate and then wait for a running time approximately less than 2 minutes, okay, and then after that, ilalabas po yung result. Okay, actually, yes, it's rapid. The result, ion selective electrode, it is actually rapid. Anyhow, and then you have your electrophoresis. Your electrophoresis, it separates molecules based on the charge and size in an electric field. Okay, electrophoresis, it separates molecules based on the charge and size in an electric field accordingly. And yes, for your electrophoresis, it is utilized for protein fractionation or for separating proteins. Okay, and so in serum protein electrophoresis, okay, it is utilized to visualize the albumin portion, and then the alpha portion, the beta portion, and the gamma portions of the protein, ay gamma portions. And yes, okay, it is utilized also for electrophoresis. It is utilized also to visualize or to separate, yes, your hemoglobin. Your hemoglobins. Okay, and you have your lipoprotein electrophoresis also. Anyway, and then you have your chromatography. Your chromatography. Please note that chromatography, it separates analytes based on the differential partitioning between the molecule or the mobile phase and the stationary phase. Okay, chromatography. I know you did this one in organic chemistry. You did the chromatography in organic chemistry. Again, it separates analytes based on differential partitioning between mobile and stationary phases. Okay, example of chromatography techniques. You have your HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography. This one actually, your HPLC is the method utilized for hemoglobin A1C determination. It is utilized by some manufacturers, your hemoglobin A1C determination. It is utilized also for determination of therapeutic drugs. Yes. And then for vitamins, for hormones also. And you have your gas chromatography. Gas chromatography is utilized for volatile compounds, especially in toxicology. Okay, gas chromatography, it is utilized for volatile compounds, especially in toxicology and for alcohols, for solvents, for your what you call this metabolites of your abused drugs, ganyan. And then you have your immunoassays. Your immunoassays, of course, okay, it is based on antigen antibody reactions. Immunoassays, it is actually based on antigen antibody reaction. Example of an immunoassay, you have your enzyme link immunosorbent assay. That is an immunoassay. Chemiluminescent immunoassay. That is an example of an immunoassay. Okay, so those are just some of your analytical techniques that you will learn in clinical chemistry. I'm just telling you what to expect here. Okay, and yes, let me just give you an emphasis on spectrophotometry because, again, as what I've said earlier, it is your most commonly utilized analytic technique in clinical chem. Your spectrophotometry, it is an analytical technique that measures the absorbance of light by a solution at a specific wavelength. Okay, and please note that this one is based on your Beer-Lambert's law. And based on this Beer-Lambert's law, absorbance is directly proportional to the concentration of the analyte being tested. Okay, so you have here your components of a spectrophotometer. This spectrophotometer employs your spectrophotometry as the analytical technique. We have actually this what do you call this, we have this machine we utilize in the laboratory at 6B609. We call it as your StatFax. Okay, we call it as your StatFax. And that StatFax machine, it utilizes, or the analytical technique that is employed is spectrophotometry. It is spectrophotometry. So if I ask you what is the analytical technique that is employed by that machine, by that StatFax, then your answer should be spectrophotometer. Anyway, let's take a look at the components of your spectrophotometer. You have a light source, you have a monochromator, and then you have your cuvette. Yes, and then you have the detector and then the readout device or the display. Okay, and so yes, yun lang po ang sasabihin ko sa inyo because as you go, you will learn about this one in detail. Of course, you have your light source. That is either a what you call this, mercury arc or tungsten lamp as such, or deuterium arc or deuterium lamp. And then you have the monochromator the monochromator. This is a prism or grating that isolates a single wavelength. Okay, that isolates a single wavelength. And then of course you have the cuvette. Okay, your cuvette, this is where you play the cuvette, that is the test tube or the tube where you place your sample. Okay, and then you have the detector. Okay, the detector can either be photodiode or photomultiplier tube, which this detector converts light into an electrical signal, and this electrical signal is what do you call this? Is reflected in the readout device or in the display. Okay, so yes, you have the light source, you have the monochromator, and then you have the sample, and then your detector, photo detector, and then your readout device. Okay, please note these are just the basic components of your spectrophotometer. Another one, you have the light source, you have the monochromator, and then you have your cuvette, and then you have your photo detector, and then you have your digital or your readout device or the display. The laboratory, you also have what you call as quality assurance and quality control. Please note that we do this one in the clinical chemistry. You will learn this one in clinical when you will go to clinical chem, and you will also do this one in the laboratory, in the clinical laboratory. Okay, you have what you call as internal quality control. Okay, internal quality control. Please note that internal quality control or quality, yes, quality controls should be run before you test your patient. Okay, you do first or you run. When I say run, you test, ha? Okay, when I say you run, you test. You run the sample. I mean, you test the sample. Again, when I say, okay, you run the control, you do the control. You run the sample. You test the sample. Okay, please wag pong malito. Anyway, when you say internal QC, okay, this is done daily. Okay, this is done daily and it should be done before running the sample or before testing the samples. Okay, please make sure that all of your quality control, yes, your quality control results should be within the acceptable range. They should be within control. Okay, your results should be within control before running your samples, your patient samples. Okay, and it is done daily prior to running the samples. Once a day lang naman. But then, if naubusan ka ng reagent, nagpalit ka ng reagent, or nagpalit ka, yes, whatever, then you need to run control. Anyway, okay, and yes, the controls are plotted in a chart. And then you have your external quality control. External quality control actually is your proficiency testing. In clinical chemistry, there is what you call as NEQUAS or EQUAS. Okay, and in clinical chemistry, please note, monthly po ang external QC, monthly pang external QC dito. Monthly, pakitandaan po. For the rest of your sections in the laboratory, once a year lang po. Pero dito po kay CC, kay Clinical Chem, monthly po ang QC. Anyway, and then you have, yes, please go over your accuracy and precision. These are terms utilized in the clinical chemistry as well as in the clinical laboratory naman. Okay, and yes, you have your error types. Okay, you have your systematic and random, and your Westgard rules application. Okay, anyway, yes, take a look at your biomolecules because in clinical chemistry, you will learn about or you will take a look at your biomolecules. You will take a look at your biomolecules and then your enzymes and then your electrolytes and then we'll do about TDM, a bit of TDM somewhat. And yes, so you have your biomolecules here, you have your carbohydrates, you have your proteins, you have your lipids. And please note that these biomolecules, they function for structure, for metabolism, for energy storage, and for signaling somewhat. Okay, by the way, if you want to add nucleic acids here, but your nucleic acids, they are somewhat not included in clinical chemistry testing kasi. Okay, so you will only learn about carbs, proteins, lipids. But then in biochemistry, you will learn about nucleic acids. You will learn about nucleic acids and heredity. Anyway, your carbohydrates, please note that uh, yes, the most commonly assayed carbohydrate is actually your glucose. The most commonly assayed carbohydrate, the most significant, okay, among your carbohydrates actually is your glucose. Okay, your glucose. Anyway, please note that your carbohydrates, they are made of monosaccharides. Okay, again, a good example of your monosaccharide is your glucose. Aside from that, you have your fructose. And your carbohydrates, they are your primary energy source. Primary energy source. Okay, and so your carbohydrates can be converted into pyruvate, and then, yes, the pyruvate will enter your Krebs cycle, and the products of the Krebs cycle will enter electron transport chain producing ATP. Okay, producing ATP. And yes, your carbohydrates, they also play a structural function in cases of glycoproteins, glycolipids. Please note that these glycoproteins, these glycolipids, they are also found in the membrane, cell membrane. And yes, your glycogen, that is the storage form of carbohydrate, or sige, the storage form of glucose in the animals. Okay, and yes, major sorry, your location of your glycogen, of course, you have the liver. You have the liver. And please note, as what I've said earlier, your most common, your most clinically significant carbohydrate is your glucose. Your glucose. And yes, okay, and so this one can be converted directly into pyruvate. And please note that persistent increase in glucose levels may cause diabetes, or uh, may, okay, maybe a sign or maybe a symptom, or yes, maybe a symptom or maybe a sign of diabetes mellitus. And please note that your diabetes mellitus, this is a disorder wherein the body cannot regulate the blood sugar or the blood glucose levels. Okay, leading to persistent elevations of glucose. And please note that if the glucose levels is persistently elevated in the blood, it is not good. It will cause uh, what do you call this? It will cause somewhat, the worst maybe is coma. Okay. Anyway, and please note that the problem in diabetes mellitus is, okay, either the pancreas does not produce enough insulin, or there is an insulin resistance. In diabetes mellitus, the main problem is the body, or yes, the pancreas does not produce enough insulin, or there is an insulin resistance. And then you have your proteins. Your proteins here, please note that your proteins, they are made of amino acids. Okay, please go back. You have your 20 different amino acids, your standard amino acids. And yes, your proteins, they function for catalysis. Please note that you have your enzymes. Your enzymes, they are proteins in nature. And these enzymes, they function to speed up reaction. They function to catalyze. And or when you say catalyze, you speed up the reaction. And then you have your transport. Your proteins, they transport substances like your hemoglobin. Your hemoglobin is a protein. And what does it do? It transports oxygen. What else? A very good example again for this one, albumin. Albumin transports a lot. of substances actually. And then you have defense. You have defense. There are substances that functions for defense. A very good example, antibodies. Your antibodies or your immunoglobulins, these are proteins in nature and they function for defense against foreign bodies. And then you have regulation. Regulation. You have your hormones. Please note that your hormones, they are protein in nature and they function to regulate, okay, to regulate metabolic processes. Okay, and yes, structure, proteins function for function for structure. Please note that you are made of protein. Okay, sabihin natin, you are made of water. You are made also of protein. Okay, your collagen is embedded in any part of your body. Okay, you have your keratin that is present in your nails, that is present in your hair as such. Okay, and yes, among your most clinically significant, you have actually a lot anyway. Among your most clinically significant protein, you have actually your albumin. Albumin. Okay, please note that a decrease in albumin may be caused by decrease in the synthesis or increased excretion. Probably there is a kidney damage somewhat. Anyhow, you have your lipids. Your lipids, please note that your lipids, they are hydrophobic molecules. When you say hydrophobic, okay, they fear water. Phobia, phobic, phobia. You have a phobia. You have a fear of this. Okay, when you say hydrophobic, they fear water, meaning, okay, they are not miscible with water. So, examples of your lipids, you have triglycerides, you have your phospholipids, steroids also. So what are the functions of your lipids? They function for energy storage. Yes, please note that your lipids, this is the secondary source of energy, second to your glucose. Okay, but then please note that your lipids, they are your most energy dense macro molecule. Okay, they are more denser, energy denser than glucose or than carbs. Anyway, they function also or they make up the cell membrane. Please note, you have your phospholipid or the lipid bilayer. Saan mo makikita yan? It is located in lipid bilayer of your cell membrane. Okay, they are involved in the hormone synthesis in case of steroids, and they are also involved in insulation and protection. Okay, in lipids, you have here your HDL, you have lipoproteins, you have your HDL, your LDL, and your VLDL. Please note that these are significant. These are significant. In laboratory testing, we test triglyceride, we test the triglyceride content, we test the total cholesterol content, we test the HDL, and then we test your, yes, your LDL also. Okay, please note that your HDL here, your high density lipoprotein, is the good cholesterol. And then your LDL, that is your bad cholesterol accordingly. This one is the good one, this is the bad one. And then you have your enzymes, okay? You have your enzymes and electrolytes. Please note, as what we said earlier, when we talk about proteins, please go back to that. Your enzymes, they are biologic catalysts. And what do catalysts do? They accelerate chemical reactions. They accelerate chemical reactions. And what about for your electrolytes? These are charged ions that are essential for fluid balance, nerve conduction, and acid-base regulation. And by the way, your enzymes, they need electrolytes. Okay, some of your enzymes, they need electrolytes. By the way, if there are no enzymes, if wala pong enzymes, probably mabagal ang metabolism ng isang tao. And when you say metabolism affected lahat, mabagal ang growth, mabagal lahat. Okay, that is why you have enzymes to speed up the rate of chemical reaction. Okay, your enzymes, they are mostly proteins, and yes, they have an active site that binds with the substrate. The substrate here is the term you given to the term given to the substance that is acted upon by the enzyme. And then you have your enzyme, they lower the activation energy that cause faster reactions. And please note that there is what you call in enzymology or in clinical enzymology, there is what they call as enzyme substrate specificity. Okay, enzyme substrate binding. Okay, enzyme substrate binding, which can either be based on the lock and key theory or induced fit model. And please note that your enzymes, if the enzyme is elevated, please note if the enzyme is elevated, it will reflect cell injury or tissue damage. Okay, so like let's say for example, there is an increased activities of ALT or yes, ALT or AST. It may it may indicate damage in the liver damage, or let's say CKMB or troponin. Okay, it may indicate myocardial damage. Okay, those are actually, please note that your enzymes, you utilize them as a marker for tissue damage. Okay, presenting to you your major electrolytes. Your major electrolytes, you have your sodium, that is your major extracellular ion, and it is important in nerve impulses. Your potassium, an intracellular ion, which is utilized for cardiac and muscle functions. Your chloride for acid-base balance and osmotic pressure. Your bicarbonate, it is a blood buffer. Okay, to buffer the acidity, to maintain the optimum pH of the blood at 7.35 to 7.45. And then you have the calcium. It is utilized for muscle contraction and coagulation. And yes, your magnesium is utilized as enzyme cofactor and for neuromuscular stability. Please note that aside from magnesium, you have also calcium and others here, which are utilized as a cofactor for your enzymes. Cofactor for your enzymes needed for the proper functioning of the enzyme. Okay, needed for the proper functioning. When you say cofactor, they're actually needed for the proper functioning of the enzyme. Okay, so let's take a look at your tests. Okay, for your carbohydrates. Okay, test for your carbohydrates. Of course, you have your glucose measurements. You have your fasting blood sugar or your random blood sugar levels. What else? You have your hemoglobin A1C or glycated hemoglobin. Uh, Oral glucose tolerance test. Your OGTT is oral glucose tolerance test for diabetes diagnosis. Actually, this one's your glucose measurement, HbA1c, they are also utilized for for diabetes diagnosis. Okay. And yes, you have actually a lot. Interferences, you have ascorbic acid and hemolysis. Okay, yeah, please note that the primary aim actually for what they call is the primary aim or the primary goal for requesting glucose measurement is to rule out diabetes mellitus. No, and then you have your renal function test. You have your renal function test, meaning when you say renal function test, these are tests that will evaluate the integrity and the normal functioning of your kidney. Okay, of your kidney. When you say renal, it is kidney. It means kidney. Okay, renal function tests. You have your BUN. Okay, please note do not confuse this one with your clinical microscopy or with urine analysis kasi iba po yon. Okay, anyway, your BUN, you have blood urea nitrogen, you have your creatinine, uric acid. Okay, those items, they are utilized for renal function. I mean, they are actually renal function tests. What you call this estimated GFR or estimated glomerular filtration rate calculations also is an example or is a renal function test. And then clearance test, you have your creatinine clearance, okay, that utilizes, I mean, that is actually a renal function test also. And yes, electrolytes. And then you have your liver function tests. Your liver function test, you have your ALT, your enzymes, sorry, your enzymes, as well as your albumin and total protein, as well as bilirubin. So you have your enzymes, alanine aminotransferase, aspartate aminotransferase, ALP, alkaphos or alkaline phosphatase, and GGT. Okay, those items. Bilirubin, you have total, direct bilirubin, and direct. Okay, those are tests to determine the function or to, yes, to check the integrity of the liver. And then you have lipid profile. Lipid profile for, what you call this? Your lipid profile is for the risk, okay, to check the risk for coronary heart disease or for cerebrovascular diseases. Anyway, you have your total cholesterol. Okay, we test this ones. Total cholesterol. You have HDL or your high density lipoprotein, low density, and very low density lipoprotein. Okay, triglycerides. If you want, chylomicrons also. Okay, and so but then chylomicrons, they are not usually tested, okay, in lipid profile. You have your total cholesterol, HDL-C, LDL-C, VLDL, and triglycerides. Please note that your lipid profile is utilized for cardiovascular risk stratification or cardiovascular disease. Okay, risk assessment naman siya. Okay, and yes, included also in clinical chemistry is you have your endocrine and hormone testing. Okay, endocrine and hormone testing. Of course, you determine the levels of your thyroid hormones like your TSH, free T3, free T4, ganyan, as well as cortisol levels, reproductive hormones like uh, estrogen, testosterone, ganyan. Aside from that, PTH, and calcium calcium. Anyway, okay, for endocrine and hormone testing, please note that usually the methods here, they are immunoassay-based. Okay, immunoassay-based methods, immunoassay-based methods. Pakitandaan po, usually immunoassay-based methods po sila. Hindi po sila spectrophotometer based. Okay, dito po na portion, immunoassay-based po sila. Okay, cardiac markers. Okay, you have troponin I, or troponin T, troponin I, or troponin T. Please note that this one is utilized for diagnosis and monitoring of heart disease or cardiac diseases. Cardiac diseases. And usually, your troponin I, this is treated as STAT. Troponin I, this is treated as STAT. When you say STAT, you run it immediately. Ganon. Okay, you have your proBNP, okay, or your brain natriuretic peptide, ganyan. Okay, CKMB, creatinine kinase. Anyway, and then you have therapeutic drug monitoring. Your therapeutic drug monitoring, still, you will learn about this one in clinical chemistry. Sa clinical chemistry 2 naman siya. Anyway, okay, and so it is utilized for drugs with narrow therapeutic index. Okay, with narrow therapeutic index to maintain the concentration at the therapeutic level. At the therapeutic level, because if there is a narrow therapeutic index, if lumagpas ka lang sa therapeutic index na to, lumagpas ka lang ng mas mataas, then it may cause what we call this, it may cause death of the patient, ganon, or serious effect. Okay, so usually in therapeutic drug monitoring, the samples are peak and trough levels. Okay, so in TDM, you will learn about pharmacokinetics of the drug, the absorption, the distribution, as well as the distribution and excretion of the drug. And you will also learn about the common drugs. Okay, so you have common drugs that are being monitored. Okay, you have your digoxin and the rest. And also in TDM, or yes, in toxicology, you will learn about your drugs of abuse. You will learn about your drugs of abuse. Note that in clinical chemistry, you will also do special tests or special chemistry tests like uh, determination of your cancer markers like alpha-fetoprotein, carcinoembryonic antigen, okay, CA125, CA15-3, those items, okay, because they are, or prostate-specific antigen also is included, okay? Anyway, so for clinical chemistry one, of course, you will learn about the principles of physiology, or principles of your active substances and waste materials present in body fluids. And yes, what are the components of the course that you will, yes, the components of the course for clinical chemistry 1, you have instrumentation, your analytical techniques, okay, your glasswares are also included there. Quality assurance and quality control, glucose determination, lipid testing, renal function tests, liver function, protein testing, and biosafety and waste management. In CC2, it is actually, or clinical chemistry 2, it is actually a continuation of your CC1, and it deals with the concepts and principles of enzymes. Okay, enzymes, what else? Electrolytes and other. Okay, and drugs. Okay, and so for this one. So your expected test procedures that you will do in CC2, you have bilirubin test, direct, indirect, and total. And then enzymes, you will determine the levels of enzymes of ALT, AST, mga ganyan. And then you will do electrolyte testing also and hormone testing as well as drug testing. Okay, and yes, please note that showing you here your book, okay, or textbook somewhat for clinical chemistry. Please make use of your Henry's Clinical Diagnosis and Management by Laboratory Methods. Okay, this is actually the 24th edition, the latest edition. Okay, also please utilize Bishop, the book by Bishop. Okay, just the two, they are good. Okay, they are enough. Okay, so for a references for clinical chemistry. Anyway, so I guess we will end here. Let's continue some other time. And this has been Gael, reminding you to live fully, love deeply, laugh often, keep learning, and never forget to enjoy the ride. And as you move forward, may you always choose curiosity over fear, kindness over convenience, and growth over comfort. Celebrate your small victories, honor your quiet moments, and trust that every step, no matter how uncertain, shapes the story you are meant to tell. The world is wide, your time is precious, and your journey is uniquely yours. Go make it extraordinary. Thank you so much. Thank you, and see you around.